And I think as well, like that is the problem that Bernal's going to face with this paradigm shift that we're seeing is that a lot of these Galacticos are incredibly good at time trialing. Roglic, Poggi, Vingegaard, Evenepoel are all top 10 time trialists in the world. Bernal isn't there. So I think it's just going to be hard for him to really stand out against these guys. And I think you saw as well when we were in the mountains at Gran Camino that Vingegaard still has that kick on him and can beat him in the climbs. Maybe Vingegaard's in better form than Bernal, but neither of them are really targeting this race. They have bigger goals deep down the line. If anything, I would say that...
yes, Vingegaard was. He's like Gran Camino, target number one, everything else number two.
Well, he's already won 2 Tours de France. He used to win 2 Gran Caminos, you know? It's just where heroes make their name.
I mean, at the Gran Camino, like the one he did last year, this year, Josh Tarling winning that one stage. He's won 6 out of the 7 stages he's taken part in Gran Camino. Like, what other rider has had that statistic in these short races? Tour of Slovenia, Tadej Pogačar doesn't even have that.
Yeah, and I think like Gran Camino as well, they do keep offering these very ambitious mountain stages and hilly stages. And I think Vingegaard's also showing that he's more versatile than we maybe would have thought a couple of years back. And we saw that last year as well at the Basque Country and the Dauphiné. Here as well, Gran Camino, once again, he showed that he's more than just sort of a guy who can time trial well and climb well. He has that sort of hilly stage race reading, which I think is something that Poggi really has. Vingegaard's rising to that challenge because that could be somewhere where Vingegaard could lose time to Poggi in the Tour de France. But if Vingegaard matches that sort of that level, then I think he could be, unstoppable.
Jumping the questions. We did that last year with Tadej Pogačar. Yeah, it's already been a year since that video. Well, I don't think quite a year, but is Jonas Vingegaard a complete rider in your opinion? We saw him descending well. We saw him climbing well. The hills as well, the time trialing. Well, we didn't see the time trialing. He was 2 minutes down on Josh Tarling because he was taking it quite easy. But in terms of, a completeness of a GC rider, well, we spoke about Tadej Pogačar saying that he's probably the most complete rider of his generation. But this Vingegaard, what do you think?
He's close. I think he is really close. I'd say last year I'd be like no, but I think it's just like you were saying, it's just his ability over shorter kind of punchy terrain. I do think that Poggi still has the edge on that, and that just comes from, I think, Poggi's greater participation in one-day races. Personally, I think that's really what comes from, the racecraft and the reading of the race. You know, if I was to leave both of these guys without a domestique, with no team protection, I would still favour Poggi to do better because I think that he just has that racecraft from the one-day races because Jonas just doesn't do as many. But saying that, I think that Jonas showed in this race some real good kind of punchy terrain prowess. I would love to see Jonas at Liège. I really would. But he just doesn't get sent there. It just annoys the hell out of me. I do think that Jonas is very close to being a complete rider as a GC contender. Obviously, I'm not expecting him to start riding Roubaix.
I think it really depends what we set our parameters to for complete rider, because like in terms of complete rider across the calendar, Poggi's number one. But in terms of a complete rider for a Grand Tour setting, Vingegaard's number one. Because, how often a Grand Tour race is raced like classics? Not that often. We can have classic style profiles in a Tour de France. They're not necessarily going to be raced like a Liège-Bastogne-Liège. So I think in terms of that Grand Tour setting, Vingegaard is probably number one. And it is also difficult as well because we have 4 incredibly complete riders at the top of their game right now. We are spoiled for choice with Poggi, Roglic, Evenepoel, and Vingegaard. They're all incredibly good riders. 3 of those 4 have monument victories to their name. If we look back at the sort of 4 great Grand Tour riders of the 2010s in Nibali, Froome, Quintana, and Contador, Nibali was the only one who won monuments. And Quintana's a bit of a sort of meh time trialist, even though he won a Monte Grappa time trial, a mountain time trial, the Giro in 2014. Doesn't quite count. But I think just he is an incredibly complete rider. I think he is the best Grand Tour rider at the moment. If complete Grand Tour rider at the moment. That's what you're fishing for. But I'm not quite so sure he'd win a Liège comfortably like a Poggi.
No, definitely not.
I just think that, well, you say like Grand Tour stages might not be raced like Liège, but I do think like there are some stages like maybe like the first couple of stages of the Tour this year are very one-day race-esque. and I would still favour Poggi over that. But I do think when you get to like high mountains, Jonas is still the guy to beat for sure. So I think I agree with you, and in that as a Grand Tour, like if I'm putting somebody into a Grand Tour, but Poggi just for me just edges it ever so slightly, just because he's got a slightly better sprint, and I think he's just reads a race a bit better.
I agree, but then also looking at sort of 2023, last year's Tour de France started with stages that looked like sort of one-day races. Poggi did gain some more time there, but it was like a negligible amount that meant nothing really in the mountains. I think that is also the difference here, is that these classic style profiles in a Grand Tour setting just make smaller gaps than they would in a classic, you know? And with Jonas's team around him as well, I just think that they support him, they'll limit the losses, and then eat it back in the mountains.
Yeah, that's true. Because Jonas was perfectly capable of following Poggi in all of those attacks last year, like you were saying at the start. And yeah, Poggi gained bonus seconds, but it wasn't like a time gap. There wasn't like distance between the wheels where at the end he gained seconds because of the gap between wheels. It was just bonus seconds. So, Jonas not being as good as that doesn't really matter, like you say, because if he drops Poggi by 5 minutes up Col de la Loz, 6 bonus seconds in the first few stages doesn't mean anything, because, they're just completely blown out of the water in comparison. So Jonas is probably at the exact GC all-rounded person who you could get, I think, like hands down.
Well, we'll move on. We could talk about this till the cows come home, whatever that means.